Welcome to the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez, where we talk everything real estate. Today, my guest is Nancy Vander Zwan. I didn't mess it up that time. From StagingCraft. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Pat. Talking about home staging is so important, and it's one of my favorite things.
Perfect. So now, I always start off the show by asking, how did you get started in the staging business? So tell me your story.
About 14 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom. I'd been in corporate life until I had my child, and a friend of mine who was a realtor said, "Your house looks amazing. I just got a new listing that's been on the market for a year with another agent, and they lost the gig because the house didn't get a single offer." She said, "Would you go in and give them some advice?" And this is before I even knew what staging was. So I did, and it was an older couple. Kind of help them rearrange things in their house and thin it out and create more light and space. And it sold for full price in 6 weeks, and I was hooked.
There you go. Now, is there like a school or, credentials or anything like that? Does that exist?
It does. Not necessarily a school, but there are a lot of accrediting organizations and training organizations. The Real Estate Staging Association is one, International Association of Home Staging Professionals is another, and I'm accredited.
Okay, perfect. Now, is there like a course or something you have to take, or like how do you get accredited?
Yeah,
What does that look like?
yeah, it's not like a realtor's requirements. There's no CE. It's just you have to have a desire to help. Anybody, unfortunately, unlike real estate, can say they're a stager. And a lot of people who are decorators say they also do staging. But staging isn't decorating, I tell realtors. Decorating is kind of an art. Staging is a science. You have to know about furniture placement, traffic patterns, light. Mostly you have to know how something, when you're looking at it, is going to show up in the MLS photos. So I think like an MLS photographer, I tell clients, and I go in, and when I do a consultation in particular, I tell sellers absolutely everything they need to do in every room, if it's an occupied, in order to make it look terrific and draw those potential buyers.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about that. I have a question for you with that. But last question before we actually get into the staging part of things. What is your territory? Where will you go?
Well, I'll go anywhere for the right price, let's face it. But right now, we started out in central Bucks County. Then we added Montgomery County and Philadelphia. We're now up to about a 7-county area. Okay. So the greater Philadelphia region, South Jersey, Lehigh Valley, and South Central Pennsylvania, York County, areas like that.
Okay, great. Okay, so now this is my first question, because this is something that, I would think of. I'm a little not right all the time, but when you walk in a house, what do you see? Is it like, I was in Italy. They said that Michelangelo, when he saw a slab of granite, he just started chipping away, and then it just appeared. So what does that look like for you? You walk into a house, it could be empty, there could be furniture there. Like, do you just visualize? Do you see it?
I do, but that comes with years of experience and some training. It's two things. When you have an occupied house, when I walk into an occupied house, I know exactly in each space what needs to come out so that the room looks brighter, bigger, if there's a focal point, so that the emphasis is on the focal point, and that might be a huge bay window. It might be a fireplace. I know what things in each room the buyers are going to gravitate toward in those pictures. For a vacant house, when I walk in, the first thing I do is I find what I think are the benefits or the highlights of a property. I know with the type of furniture I use, how it's placed, how to play up those benefits. I also see potential drawbacks in a property. You all as realtors walk into a property and you know exactly what's going to make it easy for you or difficult for you to sell a house. And that's how I think too. And that's how I plan how we're going to treat the space.
Okay, so when you walk in, you just, boom, it just appears. The magic happens. You see a blank canvas and you just It just happens.
Well, yeah, and again, that takes experience, right? I wasn't that way at the beginning. And it took a lot of, I've probably done hundreds of houses at
Right.
this point. I started out doing just consultations. So I kind of cut my teeth on that for a number of years. And so that teaches you how to prioritize what's important in a property. And so now I wouldn't say I'm Michelangelo, although I thank you for the comparison. But I really can walk into a space and know exactly what I need to do to help a buyer or help a seller and a realtor move that property.
Okay. Now, you work with realtors and owners of the homes, correct?
Yes.
Now, what does that balance look like? Is it around 50-50? You work more with realtors?
Well, it's interesting. You know, I tell realtors, imagine somebody else had to market your business for you. That's a lot of what stagers have to contend with. We get calls all the time. I get calls from my social media, from my website, word of mouth, but the large percentage of my business comes from realtors recommending me or calling me in to do a consultation. So I'd say it's probably about 80% of business comes through realtors and about 20% is kind of organic.
Okay. And then is most of your business a vacant home? You know, there's nothing there, maybe new construction that needs to be staged? Or is it an existing home, or is that around 50-50?
I think now, well, with regard to consultations, obviously, I don't charge for a vacant to go look at it. I call that a preview. So I'd say I'm about at this point 40% consultations, 60% vacants. I've started doing, my team and I, some more kind of commercially oriented properties. We've done a couple of lobbies of buildings. We've recently done more model homes. So we'll go into new builds that are condos and we'll stage some models. So it really kind of runs the gamut.
Okay, great. Now, what would you say if, you know, to somebody who wants to sell a home, like maybe 5 things or one thing, you know, that they should do or be looking at, you know, before they put it up for sale? Is there any one thing or common things that, you know,
Yeah,
have like clutter or something?
that's a great question. And I have a few things that I tell every seller of an occupied home or realtor, and they are as follows. 1, take pictures of your rooms and then look at those pictures on your cell phone, because that's how a potential buyer is going to see that room in your house. So you take the pictures, you look at what's there, and you have to come up with ways to make those spaces look brighter and bigger. So the first thing I tell folks is when you take the pictures, see how much you can take out of a room to make it look bigger. Second, take a look at the lighting in your rooms. A lot of houses in the Philadelphia region don't have hi-hats, for example. They're older homes. There might be a ceiling fan with a light, but that's not going to do the trick. So find ways to add light in a room, even if it's inexpensive floor lamps. The third thing I tell sellers is you have to depersonalize. And I know that's kind of an overused expression these days, but depersonalization means taking your personality out of it. I tell folks, take out anything that has a place, a face, or a name on it. So certificates and diplomas, pictures of the family, things like that. Especially, and a lot of realtors don't realize this, especially if you have an occupied home in which children are living. I can't tell you how many times I have to convince home sellers of young children to take down the pretty poster with Amelia on the wall. The last thing you want the public to do is to know about what your children's names are from a safety perspective. So it's about finding ways to make your rooms look bigger by taking things out, adding lighting, and taking your personality out.
Okay, great. That's some good stuff. Yeah, I really wouldn't think of maybe taking personal pictures, because if somebody walked in, they would turn around and say, "Oh, I can see my family picture there."
Well,
Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
You know, I guess
I do.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Well, but, you know, and stagers go back and forth about this too. You know, I think it was NAR some years ago did a study of the amount of time a potential buyer spends in a property. In an occupied house in which people's furnishings are present, potential buyers will stay an average of 15 minutes in the house that they feel kind of meh about or might consider.
Right.
That time goes up exponentially if everyone's personal belongings and proclivities are out of a property. Why? Because studies have shown that when buyers walk into a property and they don't feel like they're encroaching on somebody's personal property, they're likely to stay longer.
Right.
So we want buyers to walk into a property and not think, okay, I probably have about a half an hour to look around. We want buyers to walk into a property and immediately start envisioning how they would live in this space.
Right.
It's just easier to do when people's stuff isn't all around them.
Okay. Now, as far as cost, sure, it ranges. I mean, you can have a 10,000 square foot house is obviously going to be better, much more than a condo. But how expensive is it, or how inexpensive is it? Like, what are some of the ranges? Some ideas there?
Well, Philadelphia region is very much like other major cities. It's going to run the gamut. A consultation price ranges from like $350 to $550, and that's for a one-time visit to go in and tour the property and do what a lot of us stagers call a walk and talk, in which we walk around with a seller and or a realtor, and they take notes literally on everything we say. In terms of staging a vacant, that price varies dramatically too. There are some staging organizations that will take a look at the price point of a house and will create a pricing structure from there. I don't. People ask me often, what's your price list? Can I have a copy of your price list? And I don't do that because I don't believe in overstaging a space. I also don't believe in overcharging. So in general, if I had to give general terms, I do a lot of flips in, say, Northeast Philly, Lower Bucks County. For a 1,200 to 1,800 square foot house, that usually ends up being around the 3,000 to 3,500 price range. Bigger houses, are up from there. But I can't speak for other stagers, but I'm going to take a look at the number of rooms, the amount of time it's going to take my team to pull and pack, what the movers are going to charge to get it there and get it out based on how much we're bringing in. And then I develop my price from there.
Okay, great. Okay, and then what kind of feedback? I know you mentioned in the very beginning that a house didn't sell, and then you went in there, did your magic touch, and it sold for full price offering. Are there statistics on a staged home versus a non-staged home as far as return?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of, the caveat to this is, anybody in any business has statistics. I'm a little leery of using statistics, not because staging doesn't work, but because you have to wonder when somebody says a house sells 82% faster,
right,
staged versus unstaged. How do you create that? I just know in terms of days on market, my properties are at least, I'm going to say 45% less days on market than comparable houses in the same area that are not staged. So that's a personal statistic that I keep because I don't want to try to sell my business by using statistics or numbers that just aren't meaningful to people.
Okay. And then two more questions for you.
Yeah.
I saw that you do like lunch and learns. You'll talk to realtors and things like that, and you go out to the office and speak to a group. Tell me about that.
Sure. Well, I have a philosophy in that I really believe I'm in service to realtors and especially sellers. I know how stressful selling a house is. I know it's sometimes the rate limiting step to somebody moving on with their lives. So I like to educate realtors as much as possible about what staging can do. A lot of realtors in the Philly area, even now after it's been around for 20, 25 years, have heard of staging. They see the last minute and a half on Fix or Flip, and they know what stagers do, but they don't know how to work with us. So I like to go out and give realtors clear information that you can give your sellers on. I tell you, for example, how do you talk to your sellers about getting their house ready? How do you convince sellers to make some easy cosmetic changes in the house? And then I educate realtors on how we work. It's really simple. I mean, all realtors have to do, at least as far as StagingCraft is concerned, is give me a call. and we take it from there. And we'll contact the seller, we'll talk to the investor or the person who's got the vacant. We'll go out, we do an estimate for the realtor. Realtor passes it on to the seller because we tell realtors we position ourselves as your stager. So we initially do everything through the realtor and then we take it from there.
Perfect. Okay. Now, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, it could be, because this goes out to mostly realtors, about 3,000 or 4,000 realtors out there.
Love you.
How would they get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, we've got an active social media presence. If you look at StagingCraft on Instagram and Facebook, I have a website, StagingCraft.com, and my phone number's on there. And if somebody's sitting there with a pen right now, it's 215-262-7306. And I really want to say one more thing.
Sure, absolutely.
And that is, everybody uses the expression added value or adding value. Staging is one of the professions in which we literally add value. And I'll give you a tiny example. I had a realtor last winter. She got a listing. The highest comp in the neighborhood was $1.3 million. The seller said, we want that for our house. It was smaller. It didn't have a pool, which the other house did. The realtor called me and said, this house, they won't list it for 1.1. They want 1.3. You have to make it look like a 1.3 house. Guess what? We made it look like a 1.3 house. And that's because we added value by creating spaces that forged an immediate emotional connection. When buyers fall in love with it, they have to have it, and they're going to compete for it.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, I'm so pleased. Thank you, Pat.
And I'm going to be seeing you. We have the Real Estate Symposium coming up. You're going to be doing that for us?
Absolutely.
Great. So that's the Real Estate Show with Pat Lopez. Be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe. I have great guests like Nancy on the show. And leave a comment. Tell me some things you'd like me to cover in the future. Remember, this show is everything real estate, no limits. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.